All right, guys. So the objective here is going to be to just go through a whole franchise without actually playing any of the games, and instead trying to see how many years we can go through and see how high of the tier we can get. So I guess we'll try to keep these to just about an hour, maybe 45 minutes. So we're going to go ahead through and start with Baltimore here. Can you guys still hear me? Because I can't hear myself on my own stream. Which is very strange because I can hear the audible of the game here. So if somebody in the chat can just tell me you can hear me. Okay, well, if you can hear me, then that's all that matters. So we are going to start with, I guess, what would essentially be my home team, the Baltimore Paladins. They essentially would have, let's see, a decent wide receiver, a decent defensive line, and a good punter, which I don't plan on needing or using. So we'll go ahead and just go through here. I'm going to keep the funds on because I think that adds to the challenge of the game, trying to maintain a, I guess, functioning football team. The random tier placement isn't something I want to do. I'm kind of hoping that we get in the final tier. And although random rosters would be fun without players you guys recognize, I don't think it matters much at all. So go ahead and start this, and then we'll kind of walk through the way I kind of like to assess how a franchise runs. So obviously the first thing that we need to do is figure out how much money we're spending each year. And the way we do that is by going into the front office and looking at our financial reports. Every year we start obviously negative with our expenses, and then you have to make that money back up. So that's what we're going to be doing here. Looks like we don't have a lot in facilities, only about $3.8 million, so I'm not overly worried about it. We'll take a look at exactly what we have to work with. A whole bunch of field items that are in poor to okay condition. It looks like we do have a pretty good operation for our team because the practice fields, the film room, everything's been installed except the pool, which all of these things vary and change as you start franchises. Looks like we only have a trainer's room, which is fine, and then transportation looks like we're pretty much set. So as far as overall expenses, I'm not going to do anything now because obviously we are concerned about keeping the team afloat first a little bit. Taking a look at the first matchup we're going to have is going to be against Cleveland, so you get that rivalry game. Let's just take a look at our actual roster here and see if there's any glaring weak areas. Looks like everybody is B's or A's. I mean, looks like tight ends could be a little bit of a challenge. Looks like the offensive line could be pretty much set. I would say right now we don't need to do anything as far as the roster is concerned. I don't know. If you guys are having trouble hearing me, it's probably because of this headphone. So I will buy a new headset later on this week, so we'll only have to kind of suffer through this one episode together. Well, now everyone says I'm fine, so regardless. All right, so I feel like we're pretty much set, at least for the first year, in terms of our roster. We'll go ahead and just go through and start to sim some games and see exactly where we end up in terms of the season. We'll kind of stop every 2 or 3 games and just do a real quick injury check. So it looks like we're already out to a 3-0 season. We have nobody great. We'll go ahead and take a look at the scouting, and then we'll go ahead and make it in the scouting report and just see where the best players are coming from. So it looks like with quarterbacks pretty much across the board except the Southeast are going to be strong, and every other place is going to be a challenge except for punters. So that is not a good-looking draft class at all. So the challenge being we really don't need a quarterback at the moment. And I found in playing this game, this presents a real challenge as well. So I guess if anything, we're going to have to look in the West for a defensive line or a linebacker and hope that they're there. So the West is defensive backs and linebackers. Sometimes it's odd. I don't know if it's a glitch in the game, but they won't actually have any defensive line or linebackers. So, I mean, Billy Ho sounds like a great football name to me. So we're going to scout Billy, and we're going to scout Zach Lee and Corey Wong. As far as, going over to this other area, I mean, there's really just not a need for players. So probably the best thing we could do is just scout some of what would be the best players available, which would be a linebacker. Looks like there's going to be another linebacker here. And then as far as in the Southeast, it looks like they're going to be pretty heavy with defensive backs, but that one was way higher than assessed. I mean, literally, once we scouted him, he went all the way down the board. So Elliott Lamb did the same thing. So this kind of shows you how the actual purchase of that scouting report factors into things, because, Ruben Norris over here is strength in scouting DBs. They're high on this board, and then as we actually go and scout them, they just fall right off the map. So it looks like in the Northeast, we're probably going to be best stuck with these offensive linemen. And there you can see Wayne Allen literally goes from, I believe, an A down to a C+. So definitely learning those players and not clearly being as good as we expected them to be. So continuing to simulate some games here, and then we'll revisit, obviously, where we were with the scouting. We are going to be undefeated so far, and I didn't mention this earlier. We are in Tier 3, which is kind of where I wanted to be. So you can see team morale is up. We still don't have any injuries. We'll go over to our scouting, and again, just try to work on getting these players that we were looking at the most assessed as far as going through and scouting them to the best of our scouts' abilities. Although I really don't even like continuing to scout a player that's that far down. I guess we'll just go ahead and try to focus on a player that was a little bit better off, but we do not need a quarterback. Skylar Torres maybe at running back. This is the team building aspect of this game that I really do like the most, as far as actually having a challenge and going through each draft and player. You'll notice when we get to a draft later today, a lot of these players that we're scouting right now won't even be on the actual roster, or the actual draft board, because our scouts just aren't that great. I guess at this point, we're going to have to look at offensive linemen. So going back here, we'll sim a couple more games. Going to get to 7-1. So I think at this point, we're more than likely better teams in the actual tier. Going through here and just trying to pull anything that's not a quarterback. Technically, these points get reset every time. This is such a quarterback-strong draft. I don't know how any team that needs a quarterback is getting a quarterback for sure. And then any team that doesn't need a quarterback is probably going to have a pretty full stock of backups available. Considering we do not need a backup quarterback or a starting quarterback, we're going to go ahead and leave that 1 point on the board. We will continue to sim, get to 9-2, 9-3. See if we have any injuries yet. We've actually been injury-free so far. Going to play Washington, who looks to be woeful. But they beat us. We're on a 3-game skid right now, with no injuries, but you can expect it has on team morale. So Usually you get into situations like this, thankfully we smashed Buffalo there, 44-14. These can be relatively tough things to pull out, the morale that up. Still no injuries. We actually obviously make it to the playoffs where we are going to face Winnipeg, I believe. And we are going to lose to Winnipeg in the first round of the playoffs. So that will not advance tiers. We now also have an injury as Seth Cunningham has a contusion on his leg and is out for the season, which is mercifully over. So we will go ahead and round out the actual championship game here. And we are going to progress to our first offseason. So I think that only took about 15 minutes. So take a look at our player progressions here. As you can see, both quarterbacks either advanced or stayed. Running backs, pretty much across the board, did fine. Seth Cunningham, who was the player that got hurt, regressed, as did Salvatore Cummings. Everyone else appeared to do relatively well. The older players, Eric Guerrero, who I believe would probably be the in-game version of Todd Heap, if that lets you know how old this player is at 39. Looks like he's the only tight end that regressed. Leroy Hopkins, again, just age catching up to some of these players. But apart from that, it looks like we got out of the season relatively good. Obviously, we need to start to focus on some youth. So we'll take a look here. I feel pretty content with our quarterbacks, our running backs. Maybe one young running back would not be a problem. As far as wide receivers, I think we're pretty much set there. Maybe one. Obviously, tight end needs to be an area that we focus on. But, how many tight ends do you truly need? I think 3 would be sufficient. You've got Bill Marshall at 29, Toby Clark at 26, Cesar Francis at 25. So I think we're okay, at least short term there. As far as offensive line is concerned, probably needs to be a focus with 29-year-old Gabriel Hodges and Leroy Hopkins, who is just falling off the wagon here. Also, Matthew Hoffman, who's approaching his 40th birthday. So I think we need to look at linemen. Defensive backs, we probably have one more year. We'll have to look at how draft classes go. Linemen, and I think if we're going to focus on something in the draft, we need to focus on the best linebacker that's available right now. That seems to be the weakest link of the team. So there is the player progression. We'll go ahead out to the draft, and we'll go ahead and start it. Do a pick here. And we'll just look through and see what we have as far as the best talent. So no surprise if we looked at the board, tons of good quarterbacks. As far as running backs are concerned, B-plus running backs is nothing really too spectacular. The tight ends, a B tight end would be okay. Here's the players that we actually scouted for those of you that are interested in those players that actually were being looked at. You can see at this point we have a little bit better perspective of where they are, but at the same time, these were the best players available in our actual regions, and you can see, in the first round, Billy Ho, who we were actually looking at, is the third best lineman available. So it looks like there's a good number of linebackers here. I'd like to get Nathan Walter. Hopefully he can stick around. Especially since he has fair speed and decent awareness. Awareness seems to be an issue. But we'll just go ahead and draft Billy Ho since he was one of the players we scouted. Offensive lineman in the first round, always a great thing. And then we'll go back and see if that linebacker is still there, and he is not. So at this point, probably should have went ahead and drafted that linebacker while he was there. But all things considered, what's done is done. Now we'll have to focus on a skill position. Let me see. Defensive back. Fernando Black has decent speed, decent awareness. I wonder what separates him that much from Wyatt Edwards. I guess it's just the I guess that would be fitness. We're going to go with Fernando Black. And then from there, we'll see if we can't pick up a backup wide receiver. Charles Foster was a guy that we scouted. See if there's anybody else high on the board that we scouted. It's going to be between Thomas Robinson, who has a B-plus speed, and Foster. I am going to go with Foster. We were older on wide receivers than we were running backs. So going through here, looks like we can get Omar Cruz, who was a lineman we scouted, so we'll go ahead and do that. And then at this point, I think we're going to probably just spend the last 2 picks going for the best available players that are not going to be punters or kickers. So we'll pick up another defensive back late, and then this should be our second to last pick. I guess at this point we're just going to have to, by default, get one of these tight ends because, you've got B tight ends here and really nowhere else there was any players near that high. So let's go with, I guess we're going to have to go with Carson Rayner. I mean, this type of speed on the board isn't doing me any favors. I guess if you actually look at speed, Cameron Perkins may be, where would he be at overall? Cameron Perkins. He is way down here. I mean, I guess at this point we might as well take a shot in the dark. Take a look at D'Angelo Alexander. Alexander or Perkins, which one would be higher? They're both way down the list. There's Perkins. We'll go with Perkins just because he is going to be, I believe, the faster player. And then the last pick, our Mr. Irrelevant, I suppose. Let me see if there's anybody that actually has decent speed at wide receiver or a running back. Try to go with the fastest players we can at this point and hope we can make them into something. Gustavo Boone will be our final pick. So that is going to be the end of our draft for the first year. Now we have to look at contracts as far as who's going to stay and go. No players retired, which is surprising because we had a good amount of really old players. So we have to re-sign a quarterback for sure. Probably should have drafted a quarterback at this point. Let's see who wants substantially less money because we only have $97 million. Is it worth $18.4 million versus $3 million? I don't believe so. So we will probably do. That's clearly a much better quarterback, though. We will go another year with. Let's see if he'll take a 4-year contract. I mean, that's a big commitment, but we'll make him. We will make Ira our starting quarterback. Actually, not Ira, rather Max. And then from there, all our running backs are under contract. Here's going to be our rookie wide receivers, which clearly will displace the aging Salvatore Cummings. So we're just going to go ahead and release him as it is. And we will give these young guys pretty lengthy contracts. I like to do that as far as the finances are concerned, although to be fair, sometimes they don't take these long contracts because they know we're just trying to be cheap. So we will take Cameron Perkins on a long deal, and then we're only going to go with, I guess I really want to only go with one of these players, but, to be honest with you, neither of them really seem to really matter too much right now. So we're going to go ahead and release both Bill and Caesar and hope they have a wonderful extended career elsewhere. As far as our offensive lineman is concerned, we'll go ahead and keep Gary Knight just for the depth. And then we will sign our rookie Omar Cruz. There is our number 1 pick, Billy Ho, who, as someone mentioned in the chat, gets all the women. So we are going to sign Billy to a long-term deal, although he wants substantially more as the first-round pick. And then we will go ahead and keep Benny Hernandez on just as, no, we actually won't for that type of money, Benny. We will see you later on there, Chief. You have a good one, bud. As far as linebackers are concerned, we did not get the rookie linebackers we needed. And as you can see, 31, 32-year-old linebackers, see 1.6 million, 1.7 million. How much does Clayton Vaughn want? 2.8. We'll go with him. And I think we're going to have to rely on free agency for one of these other backup linebackers, or maybe even find a linebacker in free agency that can start. So we're going to let go of both of these players as well. And then from there, really heavy on the defensive backs in terms of free agency, or in terms of releases and drafts. So, do we want to keep Terrell Rayner? he would have been a starter, but he wants a lot of money. Hart wants significantly less. Well, let's go ahead and do this. $1 million. He wants $11.8 million. All right. Yeah, this is kind of a no-brainer, too. We're going to go ahead and sign our rookies. Long-term deals for all. And then we're going to go ahead and, even though he was our starter, we're going to let go of Terrell Rayner for that type of money. And we will go ahead and try to negotiate with Guillermo Hart here and see if he'll take this $900,000. If not, he's going to find himself out the door as well. He knows the drill by now. He signs it, and we are good to go. I actually need to go back and release Ira Weaver, so we will go ahead and do that now. Actually, we may not need to do that. All right, let me make sure we have no coaches. We don't. We'll take a look at our revenue just real quick. You can see there last year, 130 in our ticket sales, 17 in merchandise, 16 food and beverage. The playoff bonus was fantastic, and the league share, because we made the playoffs, $72 million. So we're actually making a little bit of money from the solid season, but we still did not break into the positive. So as far as team morale, I don't really think there's anything we need to do other than get the 2 players that we have off the practice squad over. Before we do that, though, let me just take a real quick look at free agency and see if there's anybody out here that is a decent player. Christian Briggs. No, I don't see anybody there that we need. You know, an A overall tight end. It's 28 years old. There's Bill Marshall that we just let walk. I wonder what type of contract Quentin Norman would demand. What was his speed rating? You know, let's see if we can't get him to sign. Nope, he's going to go to Green Bay. There is an A linebacker at 28 years old, which is what we need. You know, Wade Wise. It's a good football name, too, Wade Wise. Let me see what type of money he wants. We'll give him a little more than he's asking for, and we'll cut him a year down on the deal. All right, so that's good. We'll get a decent linebacker out of the deal. And then as far as defensive backs are concerned, I wonder what type of money. Darren Morris only wants $3 million. We were, I think, at $8 million for the corner that we were trying to hold. So we'll give him a little extra, and we'll secure him as well. So I think that's going to leave us on free agency unless there's somebody really fast and younger, and there's not. I believe we just cut Geraldo Rudolph, didn't we? I wish you could actually see, when you looked here, I wish you could actually see the teams that they played for. It's one thing they've got to work on for next year. So that means we're going to have to go back and throw 2 players off one of the practice squad, whether they are rookies or not. And we'll take a look here. We've got to put a wide receiver out and a tight end out. Actually, I believe they would have autofilled as our best player. I guess we didn't sign the tight end, did we? Take a look at where we are here. Wade Wise automatically became our starting linebacker. All right, so assessing where we are here. Quarterback, decent shape. I guess we need to go sign a backup quarterback. Running back could be better, but could be worse. Wide receiver, we've gotten younger. Tight end, we definitely took a step back, but it is what it is. Offensive line looks pretty solid. Defensive line looks pretty solid, except for the right end, which is going to be something that we have to address. Linebackers, maybe the best position fill we have, and apart from one player, relatively decent in terms of age. Defensive backs are pretty young, but I think we're okay there too. And then obviously kicker, punter, don't plan on using them a whole lot, need to score touchdowns. All right, so that's going to leave us with one expiring player, Ira Weaver. We're going to go ahead and let him walk, and we will go ahead and sign a backup quarterback off the street. So we'll take a look and see how we can develop a player. Try not to spend a lot of money here. Robert Carr. That's a lot. It's more than I want to pay a backup quarterback, Robert. The worst quarterback in free agency. Let's see if Jalen Hall really wants to play football. He does. All right. So I think we're in a good place now, supposing that everyone can stay healthy. Go ahead and take a look at where we were in terms of team rankings last year. You know what? I actually want to do one thing. I want to do something that's really important. I want to get myself on this team from Indianapolis. Maybe that's how we'll get rid of the older defensive back. Not that I'm the youngest chicken on the farm here myself. So let's take a look here. I guess we will try to get rid of Kelvin Holmes for me. I'm on a 1-year deal for less money. I wonder if they'll do an even trade. Of course not. They know I'm a playmaker. Why would they get rid of me that easy? Let's see if they'll take a 6th-round pick. Yes, they will. Apparently my value is not nearly as high as I thought it was. So we'll probably end up just doing 2 seasons. So this season is in the books. An hour, we will go ahead and start the next season. Let me see what our facilities look like. I think we're going to go ahead and upgrade the field, even though it's a pretty hefty price. Everything else is just going to have to suffice because we're not making a lot of money. So we will go ahead here and simulate out a couple seasons, get the season started on a loss, break it to 1-1, still no injuries. We'll get a couple games into the season, and then we'll go and take a look at the draft prospects. So here we are, 50%. Go ahead and buy the scouting report. Looks like it's going to be another heavy quarterback year, but it looks like running backs may be strong out of the Central. So we will put an emphasis on them. So we will go ahead and take a look at the Central and see what type of running backs there are to be had. Hodges. Gibbs. And then from here, I guess we need to go back and just take a real quick look at where we would need to get a little bit younger here. Quarterback, we're good. Running back, we're going to work on. Wide receiver, we're okay. Tight end is definitely where we have to focus. Maybe defensive line. Defensive line and tight end will be the focus points. Let me go back and take a look at scouting. Look at this report. So the best tight end is going to be in Central. That's going to kill us on those points. And defensive line is going to be Southeast. Southeast defensive line. Watch there not be one defensive lineman on the board over here. There's not one yet. Yep. They're going to have to fix this when they have those projections. It has to be, you have to have players at least on the board. So I guess we're going to be stuck looking at defensive linemen out of the West. And those players are awful. I mean, he went all the way down the board. Why do I feel like I saw my own name here? Yeah, those players went from B pluses to C's. That's no good. Can't win with a C player. Here's all defensive backs. Can't replace myself. I just traded for myself. Guess we'll take a look at this wide receiver, Nathaniel Rogers. So he's not going to cut it either. Well, that is the joy of not finding good players. At least we can take solace in the fact that we're 3-2, right? 3-3, 3-4. Take a look. No injuries. Maybe we made a mistake with that quarterback. Let me take a look at where we are with our stats. Where are we suffering here? In total yards, we're okay. In passing yards, we're decent. It's rushing yards that seem to be the problem. We're mid-pack. Well, we're also allowing the most yards in the entire conference, so that's probably a big part of our issue. So we're going to have to focus on that defensive line, I think, more than anything else. Even if there's not good players, have to get better on defense. And unfortunately, there's just no defensive players to be found here. And I guess at this point, we're going to be stuck looking at defensive backs. Defensive backs and linebackers and hope for the best. Hopefully, Joey Cross can be the answer, but he's definitely not going to be the answer. He went below on a full scout point. On full scouting, he went below 2 other defensive linemen. So this is why this game is fun to play, in my opinion. You at least have a challenge. It's, to me, more challenging to know nothing about the players. Unlike, Madden, where you may have a predisposition of how good a player is or how great a player is. There's no name to associate here. We're going to barely stay above 500 at this rate. So halfway through the season, no injuries, 6-5, 6-6. We're going to be on the cusp of not making the playoffs. Need to put together like a solid 3 games here. San Francisco is a better team, so we drop it. Washington, this is an important game. Really need this win here. We get it. So this is going to be probably, I don't know if it's going to matter. I guess this would be whether we make the playoffs or not. We're on a 1-game streak. Buffalo's on a 1-loss streak, so this is pretty much the most important game we have of the year. We didn't do it. So we finished the season 9-7, and we're going to have to reevaluate a lot on the offseason. So go ahead here, and we did make decent money, but we definitely didn't have a successful team. We now also have 5 players retiring. So, Edward Romero, 28 years old. Faux Todd Heap retires. Matthew Hoffman, defensive back. Guillermo Hart, that we just gave a contract to. And Chris Tyler, linebacker. No retiring coaches. All right, let's take a look at how everybody fared. Looks like we did have the older wide receiver of the group fall back a little bit. Older lineman fell back a little bit. Overall, not too bad. Got to get rid of these older players. I stayed the same, of course. Defensive backs look like they got better across the board, so can't really complain, especially if we were giving up that many yards. So on to the draft we go. Obviously, have to come over here to defense. B+ defensive lineman. There's nobody that's an A. So we've got a B linebacker here with horrible speed. We've got a B-plus defensive lineman with horrible speed. It's like which one is going to be the least hurtful, because I don't think either of these players are going to be that good. But we've got this player's also 20 years old. We're going to make some adjustments to how these players train in practice. We'll go with the slower player. Let's go back here and see if we can get one of these B linebackers that are still left around. This Steve Hale has an A tackling, so that seems like it would be preferred at this point, considering our defense can't tackle anything apparently. We'll go with this scouted defensive back, even though it would appear he stinks out loud. But that shows you how bad these players were that we were scouting all the way down the chart here. Take a look. Speed-wise, you know, Emilio Mason, even though I don't know why he would be ranked so much lower. I suppose it's just the tackling, but we're going to go with him over the other players just due to the speed. See if with these last couple picks there's any players out here that are just fast. You know, we'll take a gamble on you, Logan Bullen. I hate to waste 2 picks on halfbacks here, but I don't really think either of these wide receivers are going to amount to anything. And we did actually scout Christian Hodges. I have a feeling one of those wide receivers is still going to be there. Yeah, they're both there. So who would be the worst? You know, B speed, B catching, D awareness. Sure, he can't block well, but none of them can. We're going to go with Jalen Hane. He seems to be the most complete of those players. All right, so let's go ahead and sign these guys, look at who we have to get rid of, and then we will go into another season here. Player contracts. All right, big year for running backs off the board. So we're going to make some decisions here. We've got 2 Bs, C, and we just signed 2, just drafted 2 young running backs. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to give them long-term deals, and we're going to let our former starters go. So Eric Chambers is out. Chester Taylor is out. Wide receivers, we're going to give Jalen Hane a big rookie deal. Brad Little is our star receiver. Darryl Holland has got to go. Let's see how much money Brad Little wants. We're not going to pay him $15 million. I'll give him $12 million at most. He can take it, or he can find another place to play football. Or we'll see you in free agency, Brad. Well, I don't know, man. You're 26 years old. You might not make free agency. Yeah, I figured he will want more money. You know what? I think we're going to rely on old Brian Bridges to step it up. We got to spend money on defense. It doesn't matter. We can have the best offensive players in the world. We can't play defense. It's not going to matter. Gabriel Hodges, offensive lineman, 30 years old. I think we're going to be okay without Daniel Manning, not the former Panther. So we've got a B player here that wants 4.8, and we've got a B plus that wants 9.3. We're going to let Daniel Manning go, and we're going to sign Ricardo Hammond. I believe I accidentally released him. Sometimes that's how it goes. Sorry about that, Ricardo. All right. Defensive line. This is where we really need to make a priority. We've got Michael Rodriguez, who's a B plus. We've got to sign our rookie. Sign him to a long-term deal. You know, I just don't feel like these players are going to contribute at all. We'll offer Rodriguez a decent contract, but I think we're going to have to either trade or go into free agency. He wants too much money. We're going to have to save this for players that can actually make a difference. Travis Rayner is going to be replaced by the 2 rookies we've got here, although Steve Hale wants significantly more than expected. So does Emilio Mason. That's okay. Chris Rayner, it's been nice knowing you. Sign myself. Doesn't matter. We don't have a salary cap for me. Take a look at our rookie at a C+. Can easily replace Jerome Harvey. $1 million for a rookie, huh? It's hard to go with a 36-year-old corner. So we're going to release him. And we're going to have to look at who wants less here. 7.7, 2.4. Yeah, that's a pretty good deal there, Jerome Harvey. We're going to go ahead and sign Austin Carpenter to a long contract, and we're going to let Jason Young hit the door. Kicker, I guess we need him, right? Whatever he wants. Punter, I guess we need him, right? Whatever he wants. All right, I think that pretty much does it. We got to go in free agency and spend some of this $119 million. And we got plenty of room in free agency. Let's pull our practice players off. Send to the active roster. It should be everybody from out here. So we roughly need 9 players. So let's take a look here at who's available defensively. Michael Rodriguez, Brendan Steele. You know what? It's time to break the bank on some of these guys. Linebackers. There's Rayner, who we released. And unfortunately, looks like he might still be the best player out here. See if we can give him a 2-year deal. Just kind of swallow the pride. Nope, won't let it happen. All right, Jason Young. I don't believe that we're in that trouble with I don't think we're in that type of trouble with defensive backs. Let me take a look at where we are here. We might have to trade. Go out and see who has a good defense here. Yards allowed. Rush yards allowed. Sacks. Minnesota and Atlanta. Let's take a look at their defensive players. I guess technically we need to start the next season for that. We'll start the next season. We won't play any games. So let's take a look at Minnesota and try to get a trade figured out to get a decent lineman, somebody over here. Minnesota, they need a punter. Well, sorry, too bad. Add a player. Let's take a look at who they got here. Linebackers. Defensive linemen. I mean, nothing that's jumping out at me that I'm impressed with. They have a B linebacker. Okay. I guess we'll try to get Samuel Luttrell. We really can't trade him the punter. That'll have us. I mean, I don't even know if we take him, he would start. I guess if anything, he would eventually replace Robin Cobb. You know what? Let me see if they'll take old Robin Cobb with him. Give him a draft pick here. Go ahead and take a 3rd rounder. They should be able to do that. There we go. That's fair. Let's take a look at free agency, see if there's anything that we've missed. Sean Murray is an A+ wide receiver. Interesting. We were just... Yeah, we might have to make a big offer for this. $17 million. We'll give you $18 million for 6 years to be our star wide receiver, Sean Murray. That checks a box that we didn't need checked, but I'm okay with it. Defensive backs, I think we're good. Linebackers. Defensive line. Tackling B, speed C. These 2 players are basically identical outside of tackling, which we stink at anyway, so what's it going to hurt to be a little bit worse off? Gabriel McGuire, we'll give you $6 million and you play 4 years for us. And he says no. All right, Rodrigo Shelton. No, you want way too much money, dude. I don't know what you're thinking. All right, let's take a look at where we need to fill the roster, and then we will call it a day. Guess it wouldn't hurt to have... We're pretty much set. We do need a backup offensive lineman and defensive lineman, but I think we can probably go get them cheap. We're good on linebackers. Probably need a couple cheap defensive backs. All right, so let's go ahead and get some cheap defensive backs out here. We'll go with just fast players. Terrell Saunders is a C+. Jeez, he wants way too much money. Just go down, take a look here. Jesus, Rayner. $2.2 million. How much does Saunders want? 2.4. So you've got a B+ versus an A. 27, 23. Not going to happen. It's hard playing a 31-year-old corner. Drew Webb. Nobody wants poor Drew Webb. Leo McDonald. That's way too much money for Leo McDonald. Avery Watkins is insane. All right, we got to go down to the bottom of the barrel here. These players down here that want like over $1 million to play football. I mean, you're going to be our backup. He's the most expensive one. What in the world is going on here? All right, just sign one of them at this point. What else do we need? We need a reserve running back. Probably do need a reserve tight end. Defensive line. All right. Running back. Wide receivers. Sebastian Brunch. Tight end. He's the fastest one. So always playing Madden. Looking for the fastest player. That gives us a backup tight end. Backup line, defensive lineman. He's got a lot of players interested for me in the third best player out here. Get a backup offensive lineman here. See if we can't get one as inexpensive as possible. Who's the strongest blocker? Lucas Winston. We have 2 more spots to fill. I think at this point we probably just need to get the fastest. See if we'll take that. Fastest defensive back, I guess. Dylan George. Nope. Way too much money. I don't know what other position it needs me to fill. Quarterback is fine. You know what? We only have 2. Fine. We'll make you feel better. We'll sign a 3rd quarterback. Jesse Poole has an A throwing accuracy. That's a full roster right there. So, didn't have the worst of times. Got through 2 seasons. We'll buy the scouting report for next year while we're here. And looks like it's going to be another fun time. But the Southeast has A-plus linebackers. So that'll be the last thing we scout, Southeast linebackers. Axis football, you have to fix this. There ain't a linebacker out here. We'll leave it on a cliffhanger. We'll simulate one game and see what happens. See if we win it or not. Actually, no, we won't. It's been 56 minutes, guys. I appreciate every one of you coming out here. I will try to do this every Wednesday for at least an hour. This season, we got through 2 years. There's infinite years we can go. So, obviously, could have went a lot better, but we're still in Tier 3. We got some decent players in the draft. And if nothing else, we're a relatively young team. So, hopefully, we can improve on things going forward because we need to. Nobody wants to play horrible football. Appreciate you guys as always, and I will be back very shortly with more commentary.